Hello, everyone. Hope you can hear me. I suppose that's it'd be ideal if you can hear me, actually. If anybody could send me a message, just let me know that you can hear me okay. That would be amazing. I think I'll just give it a minute or two before I get stuck in properly. I think there's still a lot of people joining by the looks of things. They're starting to trickle in now. And yeah, just thanks everyone for coming along to this. I know it's we're giving this a bit of a go. It's my first time doing one of these, so apologies if there's any technical issues. I guess with the question today being why, you're probably wondering why is this Irishman with a stammer trying to give us a webinar, but hopefully I'll come around to that in a few minutes. Hopefully you all know about corporate PPAs and what they are. If not, don't worry. We'll be getting through all that in 2 seconds. I think quite a few more people have just joined us now, so I'll get underway properly in a second. Right. Yeah. Okay. I think we'll make a start. We'll start getting into this. So the question today is why corporate PPAs. We can talk around what we can offer and all that, but I think let's start at the beginning. Let's explain to people why corporate PPAs. Starting at the beginning, let's pretty much look at what a corporate PPA is. So even just quite simply taking the two words that make up a corporate PPA. Obviously, the first one, corporate. This is the energy user. Let's think of it like that. It's no longer restricted to large corporates. And jumped ahead there a bit. And a PPA is the power purchase agreement. That's how it breaks down. That's normally a contract between a seller of electricity, i.e. a renewable generator, and a buyer. So traditionally that has been a generator selling to an energy supplier, for example. And what a corporate PPA is really doing is joining the dots between the two of these, the buyer and seller. Just like I'm sure many of you, just like myself, have been I've grown very familiar with Amazon deliveries over the last few months. And with any of these things, there's a seller, there's a buyer, and then there's a mechanism, a delivery in the middle, i.e. a supplier / the national grid. So on the corporate PPAs, I suppose it's probably worth just mentioning on this point that it's not necessarily a physical wire going between the buyer and the seller. That is also a form of PPA, but what we are talking about here is really when this is being sleeved or transferred through the grid from one point to another. So it's pretty relevant what the locations are. But as long as you know who the buyer is, the seller and buyer contract together, and everything is transferred a single party. Moving on, I've done a lot of animation, so hopefully this isn't going too slow on this. So the question is why? And I suppose, I think it's probably right to start with the question why, or I thought it was anyways. It made sense in my head to look at this, and I'll try to explain it like this. The UK deployed about 233 megawatts of PV in 2019, and there's others like this. There's been a lot of talk about missing renewable energy targets. There's been the fall of onshore wind projects, largely got to do with subsidies running their course. This title really stood out. Just one new onshore wind farm started under current policies in 2019. Again, similar, and then there's this part. And I just want, I'd like to see if anybody wants to guess what this actually is. Besides looking like terrible wallpaper, but I'll just leave that up for a second. I don't know if anybody is able to wants to have a stab and tell me what they think the answer is. If they're brave enough, I guess. But quite simply, it is hopefully coming up any second now. It's the global temperature change, and this is really what we're kind of focusing on. This has been a large a large reason for backing of renewables, and this is a large reason why companies want to buy from a renewable resource. I won't get into all the ins and outs and the science behind all this, but I just thought it was a very powerful image to show. And then there's Google. Come on, we're all guilty of this when we want to find out more about something or something that we don't really know about. We tend to ask Google. So I thought it would be a little bit interesting to look at this. A lot of you may be aware, I may have heard about net zero. So I thought we'll do a little bit of a background check on what net zero is. And looking at the Google Trends map, you can see the trajectory of over the last 18 months, just how popular a search this term has become in the UK. And there's a lot of driving factors behind this. And if you're going to go in under the skin a little bit deeper, you see that it's predominantly net zero carbon, UK net zero emissions. This isn't just about the energy world, but it's got to do with absolutely everything from buildings through to supply chains. But obviously energy, as we all know, is a big part of this. So this has been coming this has moved right to the forefront of what a lot of businesses are pushing towards. There's also this, which I thought I'd include, not saying it's any smaller part, but supporting the global goals. A lot of you might be aware of the Sustainable Development Goals and where kind of renewable energy fits in there. The RE100, hopefully you'll recognize a lot of the logos and the names on the right-hand side, but effectively what this is the most influential companies across the globe have kind of got together and as their commitment to 100% renewable energy. And the whole premise of this is a global shift to clean energy in the shortest possible timeline. This one I thought I would show kind of where we are. Corporate PPAs, they have been around a while, but I thought I wanted to show you this and kind of look at what this actually is telling us. The green is the American kind of market, and we've seen how popular corporate PPAs have become over there, especially in the last 2 to 3 years. There's been a lot of reasons for this, and Europe has been moving in a very similar fashion. But the point I wanted to make on this is that we've only just seen the beginning. Okay, obviously I didn't do very well there with that animation going through, but this is only the start. The point I'm trying to make is that a lot of companies that are looking at it now, it's not like you've missed the boat. It's not like you're coming to the party late. It's still very much early days for a lot moving on to corporate PPAs. However, we do believe this to be quite a growing trend going forward. So looking at it now means that you're still quite ahead of the game. This one I thought let's just wind it back a little bit and look at the market we're currently in. So I thought I would show the generation stack that this is based on 2019 in the UK. So roughly about a third of the electrical generation in the UK is from renewable sources. I thought also it'd be quite interesting to look at this on the flip side and actually see what this actually means. And this is the carbon intensity of the UK grid. You'll see a bit of a drop off, and this is largely due to one, the coal plants being coming offline, and the coal swapping to gas, and also with renewables. So we know where we've come to on this. So we know that we're currently at 30. I don't know if these animations are actually working. Things never work when you want them to, do they? But I'll skip a little bit ahead. So effectively, okay, that obviously didn't work. But effectively, what we're trying to do here is trying to grow the renewables. It's never going to get to 100%. We know that. There's always going to be a mixture in there with gas, nuclear, certainly for the time being. But unless we grow this, the left-hand side, we're not going to be able to reduce the carbon intensity on the right-hand side. So this is obviously the important factor to consider here. I think everybody in the back of their minds knows this when they're looking at renewables and supporting renewable development. But I just thought it's good to kind of look at it visually to get a grasp on why we're trying to do what we're doing. Ticking the green box. So some of you might, okay, this obviously isn't working either. I had animations built in here. I'll just skip ahead. Some popular terms heard in the energy industry, you may have heard them yourself. Green or brown, people saying we buy green, what's their green premium? It's REGO backed. And really the question is there, none of these are actually in any way wrong, but it's more of a question of, let's look a little bit deeper at this. Do people actually understand what they're buying, and even on the supplier side, what they're selling? So it's kind of going a little bit deeper. Like do people realize when they get REGO backed electricity that those are REGOs coming from an operational plant? Not necessarily, they don't necessarily have a say in where they're coming from, or they don't particularly see just how much that plant is getting paid. That's for their energy sales or for the REGOs. So it's going a little bit deeper into this. I'm a little bit worried now. This one definitely got a lot of animations in it. This is about new buildings. I've seen this, and this was sent on a while ago, and I thought this is interesting, and I thought it raises some good points. Now, being a former civil engineer, I thought this is very interesting in how people are looking at building new buildings. But obviously, we're mainly concerned with this part for now, with corporate PPAs, the zero carbon balance. So hopefully this will plug itself out. Again, I seem to be having a little bit of a mare with animations. I don't know if you can see it on your side, but I certainly can't see the animations, but here we go. And this bit I've kind of highlighted is that what they've been recommending is actually having a minimum 15-year renewable energy power purchase agreement, so effectively a corporate PPA. But it was interesting to see that they've specified a 15-year term. And the reason they gave at the bottom is that a green tariff is not robust enough and does not provide additional renewables. So that kind of word additional is what I'll be getting onto in a couple minutes. It's probably worth looking at the benefits. There's benefits on both sides of the fence here, for the seller and the buyer. This is effectively a bit of a mock-up on the left-hand side of how it roughly works. There's many different ways of these being pieced together, but typically it's the energy and certificates going through the grid / supplier going on to the end user. With a bit of luck, there we go. So on the buyer side, so what's historically been classed as the corporate buyer, but there's the corporate social responsibility, net zero ambitions, a traceable source, PR opportunities. Obviously, a lot of people have been setting out their commitments to green energy, and the low capital outlay. And what's meant by that is that for a lot of businesses, their business isn't in energy generation, so it's not that they're investing in making any upfront investments themselves in any wind farm, solar farm, but there is another way to support it, and that is through a corporate PPA. On the seller side, there's obviously bankability, which helps with financing, which helps getting these projects off the ground. And there's a reason for that, what I'll come on to now. The kind of the joint ones, the joint benefits really is that both sides get to support through a corporate purchase agreement. They get to support new renewable capacity, but also both sides get the added benefit of having long-term price certainty. The long-term price certainty I will get onto in a minute as well. I won't go into that too much, but additionality is a word. This basically means bringing on further renewable generation. So in the example here, I've got with a corporate PPA. This can help support new capacity. And to give you a bit of a background, there has been historically subsidies in place. The ROCs, FITs, and there still is in part CFD, contract for difference, being offered, which is available. It's an auction, so nothing's really guaranteed. So there's always going to be an awful lot of projects that aren't going to be aren't going to actually receive a CFD at the end of the day, even though they've bid for them. So kind of as an alternative to being one of the lucky few to get a CFD contract, a corporate PPA is the way to go, is the way to get finance to get these projects built. And without, so on the right hand side, without a corporate PPA, you'll probably notice that there's nothing actually there. So some projects need these to go ahead. They need the bankability. Without the subsidy, which we mentioned, they've mainly only got the energy commodity. And with energy prices, the forward curve on the market generally being about 3 years, it's very hard to get project financing without having a long-term, I suppose, a long-term financial view of what the returns are going to be. Having a corporate PPA in place pretty much backs up that this is the price they'll be getting over a 10-year period, and this can help financing be given to a project to move ahead. I don't know why this is stuck. Okay, here we go. So kind of focusing in on the price certainty, I thought we'd take a little bit of a backward view. I kind of pulled out the season ahead and month ahead kind of prices going back since the start of 2015. You'll see it's highly variable. For there's a lot of volatility in there, especially when you've got 5+ years squished together. There's a lot of reasons for this. I'm not going to go into the reasons for every drop in, for every rise or fall in the historic market, but it's a volatile market, as a lot of energy buyers will be aware. Hopefully, with a bit of luck, which I don't seem to be having too much of today. Here we go. So the corporate PPA start date, we're kind of looking from there, and then over further on the upper right hand side, I should say, is kind of like a flat rate. There's many ways that he's been put in place. I'm not going to go into all the details today, but there's all sorts of annual indexations. But let's take a flat rate example and show it against the historic market. This is long price certainty on both sides of the fence again. For a project developer, they get to know what the price they're going to get for the next 10 years from the project start date, but also for the buyer, it's a bit of a new way of thinking, really, where historically people may have been thinking, about doing 1, 2, or 3 year renewals. Looking at purchasing, a proportion, or quite a large proportion, of their energy for the next 10 years is quite a new mindset. But it also removes any fluctuations down the line. Obviously, you've got the third-party charges. This is solely the commodity we were speaking about, but it removes business risk as well. Carbon savings are worth mentioning. This was an example, probably for one of the, probably on the smaller end of a bespoke corporate PPA, but I thought it was an interesting one to bring up. So if you're looking at an annual volume of 20 gig, calculating that to have a carbon saving of around 3,000 tons CO2, and then we were kind of thinking, what's the best way of showing this? And for this client, we decided to show that's actually roughly in around the weight of about 250 London double-decker buses. And you see the poor mock-up on the right-hand side, but it was just to get a more of a make it seem more real. Actually understanding what all this means, what they can actually do with their buying their energy contract, what they can actually help. Or another way of looking at this. Okay, something was supposed to come up there. Okay. Another way of looking at this is that's roughly equal to about 140,000 trees. I don't know if there's many football fans on this webinar, but some of you may have been aware that Hector Bellerin, one of the Arsenal defenders, came out and said that he was going to personally plant 3,000 trees for every Arsenal win. although he did say that during the remainder of the season last year. So when talking to when speaking about this to one of our clients, we thought, right, let's look at this in a different light, and let's look at that, what the corporate PPA that we're actually looking at, what that actually means, and we've calculated that to mean that corporate PPA would be roughly 47 Arsenal wins. And I suppose that the cheeky comment back to them, slightly backfired, but I won't go into that, was the question was, which seems more likely, for them to sign a corporate PPA or for Arsenal to win 47 games? Now, I won't get into the ins and outs of that, but I thought it was a good way of looking at it. And that's pretty much the end. I don't know if I've seen any questions come in. I'm just going to have a quick look. I don't know who asked that. Okay, I can't really see any questions. Hopefully you've found this useful. I probably ran through it. The animations didn't seem to go my way on today's session, but anyways, these things happen. I'll probably jump straight in without explaining who I am as well. So, hello everyone. I'll start from the beginning again. Cian O'Donnell, I'm the head of the client services of renewables at Optimised Energy. Got my details there, and hopefully you found today's session useful. I know it was very on the light side. There wasn't too much detail, or I hope there wasn't, anyways. And there was going to be a part 2 next week. I'm thinking about putting that back a small bit. So what I will do is email everyone that's registered and took part today and message them about the next session if they're interested in it, and let them know when we'll be running that. That will be more looking at the how. So we've done the why, and without going into too much detail on that, then we will start to look at the how. I thought that was probably a better way. It made sense in my head to look at it that way. But if you've any questions or anything after this, please feel free to drop me a question or send it to your account manager in the company. Again, thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking part today, for joining. It's massively appreciated by myself, and hopefully you found it all useful. Also, would love to hear from you after this as well. Feedback. Actually, I should insert that we're only accepting positive feedback. No, it's a joke. But if there's any feedback or you want to learn more or anything, happy to hear about it. Thanks again for joining, folks. I hope you found it useful. Take care.